Welcome to Ridgeline Technologies video tips for Weka Pro. Today's session will be dealing with several parts of information concerning tracking state testing, scheduling, and tracking attendance and results using Weka Pro. This first segment will talk about building test dates in the system and scheduling students for attendance at a state test date. Keep in mind that it's possible to schedule students to more than one test session, and you can track as many test sessions as you like using the software. All this is managed from the main menu by going to the screen labeled My SBAC Oaks. You'll notice now when you do that, you will get a prompt asking if you want to deal with results or if you want to deal with the scheduling of students. I'm going to click on Schedule of Students. You'll see that for the month of April, currently there are no test dates scheduled for Rydell High School. So the first step involved in doing any of this is to schedule your test dates. This can be done well in advance. One person can be responsible for scheduling all the test dates. Many people can schedule students to attend those test dates. To build a new test date, click the New Test Date button. And enter a date for the test. You'll get a prompt that asks if you are going to administer an SBAC test during this test date. You can prompt yes or no, depending on what you're doing. And now you will see that you have basically created a new record that is by and large blank. And it requires that you fill in some basic information about this test date. For instance, you need to put in the time that the test will occur. In this case, we will say 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and the testing location. There are places to put a location address. These are strictly optional. You can even put information in about how to find the location. What's very critical is that you enter a maximum capacity. This can be any number, but it has to be a number greater than 0. This is the maximum number of students that you want the program to schedule for this particular test date. This is editable down the road. If you decide you want to increase it, you can. Just return to this screen and edit that. And you can also select which tests will be available on this particular test date. Now you'll notice that this has automatically assigned me as a proctor, one of the proctors. It will always assign the person who's creating the record as a proctor. You may assign up to 2 other proctors. If you wish to assign another proctor, there's a tab over here that says Staff Proctor Status, which will show you the status for proctoring of all the staff members that you have on your staff. You'll notice I have a couple of staff members here, Gabe Cotter and some guy named Owner Ridgeline, who are out of date. And therefore, if I were to try and assign them as a proctor, the system would prevent me from doing that. But someone who has their proctoring training up to date and is properly marked in here can simply be assigned with the click of a button and a selection of what position you want that person to be the proctor. So you can, for instance, replace yourself as the first proctor when you edit the record once it's at this point. Now, actually, we have completed all the things that we need to do for this particular test date. There is a button down here that says click the duplicate to duplicate a current active record. The purpose of this is to duplicate this test record in every respect with the exception of date and time. So for instance, if I'm going to have another session on the same day but in the afternoon later, I could create a separate session for that by hitting the duplicate button and then just editing the fields as necessary. Once the test date has been created, you can assign students to those test dates. And that is accomplished here under this tab that says Assign Students to Session Dates. You will notice across here that there are several tabs. This particular tab is My Students. Now, students will appear on this tab if they are assigned to you as their teacher. In other words, if you're the teacher for a student, you'll see that student's name there. If I click on the My Classes tab, you will see the names of students in any class that you teach where you are assigned to them as the highly qualified teacher for the class. Now, this will only reflect students in classes that are active and for whom you are the highly qualified teacher. If you have also or otherwise been assigned as the student's proctor for testing, then you will find a list of students for whom you have been assigned as a proctor under the tab called Proctor. If you are the principal, you have a list of all the active students in the school, and if you are listed as their principal, you can find all the students here. And there is a tab that says All, which is simply exactly what it says. It's all the students in the school who are based on the filters at the top. So here you see all the active students in Rydell. Now there is a color code on this screen, so all the students who are highlighted in this blue color are actually My Students. The other students are active students in the school, but their advisor teacher is someone else. Now, once you have created this test date and maintained that it's active, you can come over to your list of students and you can begin to assign those students to a test date. So I'm going to assign a few students to this test date just by clicking this button that says Add to Test. And I will assign, for instance, Yogi Bear to that test date, and I'm going to assign Edith down here, and I want to assign Molly Bear, but now it strikes me that perhaps she's already taken the tests. So a new feature here is your ability to view from this screen quickly this current testing status for this year. So if you click this little view button next to Molly's name here, it will pull up a screen that will show you any and all test dates for Molly that have been listed here. And in fact, it will also show you any test results that have been downloaded from the State Accountability Warehouse if you're in fact doing that in your school. So Molly Bear hasn't done anything yet, so I can add her to this test. Now, once you've added a student to the test, for instance, Yogi, you can come back here and look at Yogi and you can see the number of tests that he has been assigned to. And in fact, when I look at that, I see that Yogi on the 21st of February completed the English language CAT. He finished the PT portion of that on the 10th, and he finished the math CAT here. So he really only has one test that he has to take when he comes back. He's 75% done, but he's incomplete. So this is a new pop-up feature for that information. At this point, you've prepared everything for the students to be attending. You have a count of students over here. There are some fields on here that you need to keep in mind when the test date occurs. There's a place to verify the attendance at the test. There's also a place to mark. I will scroll over here just a little bit so that you can see the entire panel. There's also a place to mark if the student is a no-show. And you can delete a student from the test session if you know ahead of time that he's not going to be there and you've rescheduled him somewhere else, you want to get him out of the records, you can do that. If there is a no-show and you want to add a comment to this particular test record, you can do so by clicking on the little comment pencil. It'll allow you to enter a comment of any length regarding this particular test record. Another new feature is this button that appears over here called Post Contact. So when a test occurs and students show up for the test and you mark them as having verified their attendance, you can now post a contact, an attendance contact record for that specific date. So for instance, if the test date has now occurred and these 3 students have shown up and taken the test, and I have properly marked them as having attended, then I can come over here and post a contact for that student by simply clicking that button, and it will automatically create the contact record. It will then gray out the contact button so you can't, for instance, duplicate the contact record. And once the contact record has been posted, it's in the contact history for that student with the date, the time, and a default of 3 hours of attendance time. So here we have scheduled a date. We've had 3 kids come in. We've compressed time and passed the date, marked them as attending, and notified and posted a contact record for them. This will end the session for how to build class groups and how to schedule the test dates and then mark records as for attendance. Look to session 2 on the video chats for information about recording scores and looking at the overall progress of the students.